The great halls of the Galactic Council always echoed with voices of pride, power, and arrogance. Among them, none were louder than the Draconians. They were tall, scaled, and ancient. Their warships filled the skies of many worlds, and their empire was feared by all. For thousands of years, no fleet had ever defeated them. They believed themselves untouchable. And when humanity arrived in the galaxy, the Draconians laughed. They mocked Earth as a small, weak world. They called humans soft creatures from a fragile planet. To them, Earth was only a noisy upstart, a species with bones too easy to break, lungs too weak to breathe alien air, and hearts too naive to survive among predators. In the council chambers, their words dripped with venom. The humans, they sneered, are children playing with weapons they do not understand. Laughter followed, cruel and sharp. The other species joined in too, some with polite smiles, others with mocking cheers. The galaxy had seen new species rise and fall before. None expected humanity to last more than a generation among the stars. And yet, humans did not leave. They did not hide. They built ships. They traded. They explored. They survived. And that survival made the Draconians furious. One day, news spread across the council. A group of human explorers had crossed into a forbidden star system. It was a sector claimed by the Draconian Empire, a place no one else dared to enter. To the Draconians, this was the last insult. Earth will be taught a lesson, their warlord growled. Let them see the price of arrogance. The order was given. A fleet of Draconian warships, the largest, the strongest, the most feared, was sent to destroy the human presence. Their fleet was so massive that entire worlds shook at the news. The galaxy prepared for a spectacle. They expected a swift, merciless slaughter. In marketplaces, aliens whispered that Earth would finally be crushed. In the council, smug smiles spread across faces. This was the end of humanity's foolish dream. And yet, the humans did not look afraid. Their ambassadors remained calm. Their admirals did not rush. Their fleets did not move. Instead, they simply watched. Some even smiled. And that smile made others nervous, though they could not explain why. The Draconian Fleet entered the void. Thousands of ships, massive destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts, moved like a storm of fire. Their weapons burned brighter than suns. Their engines screamed across the stars. The galaxy watched through transmissions, confident that within days humanity would be reduced to ash, but then, silence. At first, no one noticed. It was normal for fleets to vanish into deep space where signals took time to travel. But then, a week passed. Then, two. The Draconians were proud. Surely they would return with trophies, with slaves, with wreckage of human ships. But nothing came back. No messages. No signals. Not even static. The council grew restless. Questions spread through the chambers. Where is the fleet? Why is there no news? But the Draconians gave no answer. Their leaders turned pale. Their voices grew thin. They demanded patience, yet their eyes betrayed fear. The galaxy leaned closer. This was strange. Too strange. Never in history had a Draconian fleet vanished. Never had they fallen silent. They were too powerful, too loud, too arrogant to simply disappear. And yet that was exactly what had happened. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some said the humans had destroyed them. Others laughed at the idea. It was impossible, unthinkable. Humanity's fleets were tiny compared to the Draconian armada. Their weapons were primitive. Their soldiers were untested. And yet, the silence continued. Merchants told stories in dark corners of markets. I heard the humans have a secret weapon. They say Earth found something hidden in the void. Maybe the humans are not as weak as we thought. The fear grew stronger with every passing day. The galaxy had mocked Earth, but now, no one was laughing. The Draconians tried to send another small fleet to investigate, but those ships also vanished, gone. as if swallowed by darkness. Now the whispers turned into fear, and fear turned into suspicion. The galaxy looked again at the humans. They remembered how Earth never looked afraid. They remembered the silence of the ambassadors, the calm smiles of the admirals, and for the first time the galaxy asked itself, what did humanity know that the rest did not? In the streets of alien worlds, children spoke of the human shadow. In the council halls, leaders exchanged nervous glances, and somewhere in the heart of Earth's command, the humans prepared for what was coming next, because the galaxy had mocked them. The Draconians had threatened them. And now the most powerful fleet in the universe was gone without a trace, and humanity said nothing. Their silence was louder than thunder. Their calm was sharper than a blade. The galaxy began to realize that mocking Earth had been a mistake, a terrible mistake. And the question burned in every mind. What happened to the Draconian Fleet? And more importantly, what power had Earth unleashed? The galaxy had expected a storm of fire, the roar of victory and the screams of humans broken under Draconian power. Instead, all they received was silence. Silence that spread like a shadow across the stars. Silence that carried weight, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. At first, the other empires tried to convince themselves that it was only a delay. The Draconian fleet was vast, thousands of ships strong. How could it possibly fall? Surely they would return, dragging human wreckage behind them. Surely they would come back with prisoners, with proof of victory. But the days stretched on, and the silence only grew heavier. In marketplaces across alien worlds, whispers began, small, quiet words that no one dared speak too loudly. What if the humans did something? A trader murmured. His companion laughed nervously, shaking his head. Impossible. Humans are nothing compared to the Draconians. Yet even as he spoke, doubt clouded his eyes. Soon, rumors spread faster than ships could fly. Some claimed Earth had found ancient technology buried beneath their oceans, machines left behind by long-forgotten gods. Others swore that humans had discovered a way to control the void itself, swallowing fleets whole. There were even those who whispered that the humans had made a pact with something older and darker than the stars. And while the galaxy trembled with questions, Earth remained silent. Their ambassadors walked into the council chambers calm and collected, speaking little, smiling faintly. That silence was worse than any threat. It was not the silence of weakness, but of patience. Of someone who knew more than they were saying. The Draconians, once so proud, now seemed uncertain. Their leaders demanded respect, but their voices lacked the fire of old. Their rivals noticed. Their enemies smelled fear. Never before had the Draconians looked so vulnerable. They sent scouts to search the sector where their fleet had vanished, but the scouts never returned. The silence spread again, like a disease. Each lost ship deepened the mystery. Each missing probe made the fear grow sharper. Other races began to pull their fleets back from the edge of human space. Where once they had mocked and threatened Earth, now they hesitated. No one wanted to risk joining the Draconians in whatever fate had swallowed them whole. On distant mining colonies, alien workers spoke in hushed tones about the silent weapon of Earth. They imagined human ships cloaked in shadow, striking unseen, erasing fleets without leaving wreckage. Children dared each other to whisper, "The humans are coming," in the night, only to shiver when the darkness seemed to listen. The fear was not only in the markets or the colonies, it crept into the highest halls of power. In the Galactic Council, debates turned tense. Representatives from smaller worlds begged for answers. Could humanity truly wield such power? Should Earth be stopped before they grew too strong? But no one dared speak those words openly in front of the humans, because the humans were always watching, always listening, and always smiling. One evening, in a chamber of the council, a nervous ambassador from the insectoid Vrax species asked a human envoy directly, "What happened to the Draconian fleet?" The human only tilted his head, his eyes calm, his voice steady. "We would not know." Perhaps they lost their way. No threat, no answer, only silence. But that silence carried more weight than any weapon. The galaxy's strongest began to rethink their place. If the Draconians, the oldest warriors of the stars, could vanish, what chance did anyone else have? Some considered forming alliances with Earth. Others thought of isolating them. Yet all were bound by fear, the fear of the unknown. For the LQ, first time in history, humanity was no longer seen as weak. They were seen as dangerous. Not because of what they had shown, but because of what they had not. No one knew their limits. No one knew their true strength. And that was the greatest weapon of all. In secret rooms, alien generals argued over desperate strategies. "We cannot let Earth grow unchecked," one hissed. "We must act." But his words were hollow. No one dared to move. Who would lead the charge? Who would risk being the next to vanish? The silence of the void had killed not only the Draconian fleet, but also the courage of the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, humans watched the stars with steady eyes. Their leaders spoke quietly, never revealing the truth. Their admirals reviewed maps and patrol routes, waiting, always waiting. Some whispered that Earth had discovered something powerful. Others whispered that Earth had become something powerful. The galaxy had mocked Earth. They had laughed at humanity's weakness. But now their laughter had turned into fear. Fear that spread with every quiet smile from a human envoy. Fear that deepened with every missing ship. Fear that whispered one terrifying thought. Humanity had planned this all along, and as the stars turned, one truth became clear. The Draconians were gone. The galaxy was afraid, and Earth was no longer the weakest world. Earth had become a shadow no one dared challenge, but deep inside human command the truth was known, and it was darker than the galaxy could imagine. The Draconian Fleet's silence should have been impossible. For a species that lived on war, who prided themselves on strength, silence was a fate worse than death. The galaxy demanded answers, and so the Council pushed for investigations. Probes were sent into the void, toward the sector where the mighty fleet had entered. The probes carried advanced sensors, recording devices, and transmitters strong enough to beam signals across light years. None of them made it back whole. The first probe transmitted only static, screams in the background, shadows flashing across its camera, then sudden darkness. The second probe showed a brief glimpse of wreckage, twisted metal floating in silence, before its feed cut off mid-signal. The third never returned at all. Every attempt ended in fear. Every mission left more questions than answers. But there was one thing all the recordings had in common. Faint echoes. Not explosions. Not weapon fire. Echoes. Like voices whispering in a language no one could understand. The Council reviewed the data in secret, but even their best analysts could not explain it. The recordings felt wrong, as if something beyond normal science was hiding in them. And every time a new probe vanished, the question grew heavier in the minds of the galaxy. What happened in that sector? And who was responsible? Whispers became louder. Some alien generals claimed the humans had developed cloaked warships, invisible hunters that tore the Draconian fleet apart without being seen. Others insisted that humanity had awoken something that should have remained buried. A force older than empires, older than the stars themselves. And then there were the fearful voices who believed the truth was simpler. Perhaps humanity itself was far more dangerous than they had ever shown. The smaller empires began to change their behavior. Where once they mocked humanity, now they grew, careful with their words. Trade treaties with Earth were signed more quickly. Military patrols avoided the edges of human space. Even pirates, who once saw Earth's colonies as easy prey, vanished from those routes. No one dared provoke a species whose silence was now more terrifying than any threat. Still, not everyone believed. A few powerful races mocked the fear, claiming it was weakness to be afraid of humans. If Earth truly had such power, they said, why do they hide it? Why not show it openly? But even they hesitated to send ships into the void. For all their pride, Not a single one volunteered to prove humanity harmless. Inside the halls of Earth's command, the truth was guarded, carefully. Human leaders spoke little in public, but in private their eyes were sharp and their voices cold. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew silence was their weapon, and they were determined to use it. Yet there were signs, strange, disturbing, signs that even Earth could not ignore. Civilian vessels passing near the forbidden sector reported feelings of dread, as if unseen eyes were watching from the dark. Their instruments failed, compasses spun wildly, and their crews returned pale, whispering that they had heard voices in the static of their radios. The galaxy began calling it the Vanishing Zone, a place cursed, where even the strongest fleets disappeared, and at the center of every rumor was Earth. In the council, representatives argued bitterly. Some demanded humanity explain what they knew. Others argued that pressing too hard might trigger something worse. The human ambassadors never flinched. Their calm eyes, their steady smiles only deepened the fear. One night, a secret meeting was held between several alien empires. In dark chambers lit by cold lamps, they whispered about how to handle humanity. Should they form a united fleet to attack Earth before it grew too powerful? Should they cut Earth off from trade, strangle them in silence? But every idea ended the same way. Fear. None of them wanted to risk being the next to vanish. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt trapped. Trapped by the unknown. Trapped by silence. Trapped by the calm, waiting humans who said nothing yet seemed to say everything, and then another signal arrived. Not from a probe, not from a scout. From a single Draconian ship, crippled, drifting, nearly destroyed. Its transmissions were broken, filled with static. But one fragment of its crew's final words survived. They came from the shadows. Not ships, not machines, something else. Then the signal ended forever. The council sat in silence as the message played again and again. No one could explain it. No one wanted to. The galaxy was terrified. And Earth? Earth remained calm. There, admirals studied maps with steady eyes. Their fleets moved with quiet precision. And their people, spread across colonies and stations, began to feel it too. They were no longer the weak species mocked by giants. They were something different now. Something darker. Something the galaxy could not understand. The Draconian Fleet was gone. The galaxy was trembling, and the humans at the center of it all had become a shadow stretching across the stars. But in the shadows, there was still more waiting to be revealed. The council chambers were no longer filled with laughter. Where once the Draconians mocked Earth and others joined in, now the air was heavy with silence. Representatives whispered nervously, their eyes shifting toward the humans who sat at the far end of the grand hall. The human ambassadors did not speak often, and when they did, their words were calm, short, almost too simple. But it was not their words that unsettled the galaxy. It was their silence. Silence had become humanity's sharpest weapon. When asked directly what happened to the Draconian Fleet, the humans never gave an answer. They shrugged. They tilted their heads. They smiled faintly as if the question amused them. That smile spread fear faster than any weapon ever could. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret too large to reveal. The smile of someone who could wait patiently for others to realize the truth themselves. Other empires sent spies to investigate. They tried to infiltrate human colonies, hack into military databases, or bribe officials. But every attempt failed. The spies vanished. The hackers left no trace but a final whisper. They were already watching us. Even bribery, the oldest trick of all, gained nothing. The humans remained quiet, calm, and untouchable. And so the fear grew. The galaxy began to change its behavior toward Earth. Worlds that once refused human trade now opened their ports willingly. Fleets that once patrolled near human space quietly moved farther away. Even the most aggressive alien species softened their voices when humans entered the room. The balance of power was shifting, and humanity did not even need to fire a shot. But beneath the silence there was something darker. On remote colonies, Alien captains who once insulted humans now lowered their eyes in respect when speaking to them. Traders began spreading strange stories, that human ships sometimes appeared where no fleet was supposed to be, drifting silently at the edges of systems, watching. Some swore they saw massive vessels cloaked in shadows, larger than anything humans should be able to build. When approached, these ships vanished without a trace, leaving behind only static on the sensors. The council debated endlessly, but every meeting ended the same way, with nervous glances at the humans who always sat still, smiling faintly. It was impossible to fight an enemy who never attacked. It was impossible to prepare for a war that might already be lost. And the Draconians? Their empire was crumbling. Without their fleet, their colonies trembled. Their enemies smelled weakness and began to bite at their borders. Yet even those bold enough to strike them avoided Earth. No one wanted to risk meeting the same fate as the vanished fleet. Humanity had not only survived, they had turned the galaxy upside down. The predators were afraid, and the prey now looked like hunters. Still, whispers spread. Some believed the humans had gained control of something forbidden. Others insisted humanity had made a bargain with a force that dwelled in the darkness of space. A few feared that the humans themselves were changing. That, in trying to survive among the stars, they had become something not quite human anymore. But whatever the truth was, Earth never said a word. One night, during a secret meeting of the Council's War Council, a brave ambassador asked again, his voice trembling, "Did Earth destroy the Draconian fleet?" The human representative leaned forward, his eyes steady. For a long moment the chamber was silent. And then, with a calm smile, he answered softly, "Does it matter?" The words echoed through the chamber like a blade. Does it matter? The question struck fear deeper than any confirmation could have. It suggested that whether humanity had done it or not, they could. And if they could, then no one was safe. From that moment, Earth's silence no longer felt like patience. It felt like dominance. Outside, the Council Earth's admirals stood over star maps lit with red and blue lights. They moved fleets carefully, not to provoke, but to remind the galaxy that humans were watching. Their fleets never roared, never threatened. They only appeared where they needed to be, silent and ready. And every time they appeared, the galaxy stepped back. In the dark corridors of alien worlds, children no longer mocked humanity. Instead, they whispered stories about the shadow fleet of Earth, stories of invisible ships that hunted silently, of soldiers who could walk through fire, of voices in the void that carried human laughter. The galaxy was beginning to learn a truth they could not accept. Humanity's greatest weapon was not power, not strength, not numbers. It was fear. Fear born from mystery. Fear born from silence. The Draconians had mocked Earth, and now they were gone. Others had doubted Earth, and now they were silent. Humanity no longer needed to demand respect. It was given freely, wrapped in fear and trembling. But behind Earth's calm smiles, plans were being made. Plans no one else could see. Plans that would shape the galaxy's future. Because humanity had learned something from the Draconian War. Something they would never forget. And soon the galaxy would discover that the vanished fleet was not the end. It was only the beginning. The galaxy lived in fear of a question that had no answer. What happened to the Draconian fleet? Every empire had its own story. Some said the humans had found a way to erase ships from existence, leaving no wreckage. Others whispered that the Draconians had stepped into a region of space cursed by ancient beings, and humanity had simply learned how to control that curse. A few even claimed that Earth itself had become a weapon, a planet hiding secrets no one else dared imagine. But none of those answers brought comfort. They only deepened the fear. Then one night, a broken signal appeared on the Council's emergency channels. It came from the very edge of the vanishing zone, a place no one dared enter anymore. The signal was faint, almost lost to static, but it carried the voice of a Draconian officer, weak, trembling, on the edge of madness. They are not ships. They are shadows wearing the shape of ships. We fired. We burned the stars with our weapons. But nothing struck them. They were already there, behind us, inside us, and then we were gone. The signal ended in screams. For days, the council replayed it again and again. The shadows, the voices, the terror in the Draconians' words. If it was true, then humanity was no longer simply another species. They had become something else entirely, something the galaxy could not fight. Still, Earth never explained. Their ambassadors listened to the signal, then looked back at the council with calm eyes and faint smiles. Not a word was spoken. That silence was worse than confirmation. In the months that followed, fragments of wreckage drifted out of the vanishing zone, shattered Draconian hulls, weapons twisted beyond recognition. Some pieces showed scorch marks unlike any known energy weapon. Others were fused into strange black material that no science could explain. Ships that studied the wreckage reported a strange hum, like whispers buried deep in the metal. Many refused to go near it. The galaxy now knew two things with certainty. The Draconian Fleet was destroyed, and humanity knew how. What no one outside Earth realized was that the humans had been preparing for this moment long before it happened. They had built their fleets in silence, hidden their weapons in plain sight, and studied the very void that others feared to touch. They had discovered something the galaxy avoided: dark space, the deep folds of reality where light itself bent and sound became memory. The Draconians had walked into that place with arrogance. Humanity had walked into it with purpose, and purpose had won. In the end, it wasn't just weapons that destroyed the Draconian fleet. It was fear. Human ships had moved like ghosts, attacking from angles that should not exist, tearing the fleet apart piece by piece until the survivors lost their minds. No empire could prepare for such an enemy. No empire could fight shadows. The revelation struck the galaxy like a storm. The Draconians, once the strongest empire, were shattered. Their colonies fell into chaos. Their leaders begged for help, but received none. No one dared to stand beside them for fear that Earth would turn its gaze toward them next. And humanity? Humanity remained silent. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They simply watched. Their silence was louder than victory drums, sharper than the clash of weapons. Soon the galaxy began to change. Treaties were signed in Earth's favor. Trade flowed freely. Armies stepped back from their borders. Humanity had not only survived, they had risen. And they had done so without declaring war, without demanding tribute. They had let the galaxy's own fear build the throne beneath them. Still, in the darkest corners of space, the whispers continued. Whispers that maybe the humans had not destroyed the Draconians alone. That perhaps they had awakened something older than all empires. A force that had been waiting for a species reckless enough to claim it. And if that was true, then Earth was no longer just another world. It was the key to something greater, something terrifying. But no one dared to ask the humans directly, because the truth was clear. The Draconians had mocked Earth. They had called humans weak, fragile, unworthy of the stars. And for that, their fleet, once the most feared power in the galaxy, had vanished without a trace. Now no one mocked Earth. The galaxy had learned, a lesson carved in silence. Humanity's strength was not just in their weapons, not just in their fleets, it was in their mystery, in their ability to hide their power until it was too late, in their calm smiles and steady silence that left everyone else trembling. The Draconians were gone. The galaxy was changed, and humanity's rise had only just begun.